So today we're talking about powerful usage of managed users. And really, we wanted to do this one today to give you an idea of the different options you have under managed users, how to store different information that you may not be aware of, how to utilize that later, really just how to be creative and utilize and get the most out of the managed users area and things that are related to that. Okay, so to start, let me go over something you've probably heard from us before, and that is the ability to manage HR information under managed users. So let me hop over to a little screenshot here that shows you an example of how you can do that. I'm not going to go into details about how to do that because we did a whole webinar on that. So if you hop over to our help site and just search HR, it'll show you the steps of how to set up managing HR files, which can include managing your agents' 1099s, their contract files, managing their license expirations or anniversary dates, and getting trigger reminders for those. So head on over to our help site to look at that video and the article related to that if that's something that you're interested in. But you can see here when you do utilize it, you've got the ability to, again, store information by each user or agent, including anniversaries, reminders, etc. Okay, so that is the first area. Let me hop over to manage users now while I talk about the second part. I mentioned that you can store license information, etc. under manage users, and then use that information later if you use the HR features to go ahead and store it that way. But you can also just straight store their information, whether it's their license information, got the ability to have their license number here, whether it's their start date, etc. Even if you don't use that whole expanded HR method, you can just store that information flat here. And then obviously there's a lot of other information you can store under managed users that you've already seen, but just kind of highlighting that there. Also, when you do store their start date in this field here, when you're on a transaction and you're viewing the agent, you can hover to view their start date here. That way you don't have to hop back and forth over to manage users to see their start date. You can see it just by hovering over their name on a transaction. Also kind of related to the information on here, and you've heard us mention this before as well, we encourage you when you've got teams or groups that you need to set up, if you use our locations, under manage locations, use our location feature to separate that group as a separate location or that team as a separate location. Once you do that under manage users, you've got the ability to both set that new location as a person's primary location, right? Which will allow an admin to manage that user's information, particularly their docs, etc. And then also isolate their permissions by location, right? So if I've got, for example, maybe Ginger's team as a location, I can give someone a primary location of Ginger's team, and then I can come down and give that person permissions, specific permissions within Ginger's team. Okay, so making it very customized as far as what they can do in transactions, where they can upload information, and which location each user belongs to. Okay. Also on this page, wanted to highlight the primary admin feature. When you specify that a user is a primary administrator for a location, that means that any system messages that come from that location will have that user as the from in the email address. That way, if someone responds to one of those messages, that reply goes to that person. So it allows a much cleaner workflow of who needs to see what. It goes back to the appropriate person. Okay. FYI, if you don't specify a primary administrator for location, the from will be the person that you've set up under, if you go up to admin settings, it'll be whoever you set under, down below, there it is, the support name and the support email address. That's who the from will be. And if you don't have anyone specified there, then it would be the master admin. Okay. Heading back over to manage users again. Just noting that when you are on a user's profile, you can see their mail drop address up top here, okay? That way, that'll prevent you from having to log in as the person or have that person log in to find their unassigned docs mail drop address. You can see that right there, okay? And again, that is their generic unassigned docs mail drop address. You can also see that if you are on the manage users list here, if you download user list, that unassigned docs mail drop address will appear in that list of downloaded users for each user as well. Okay. While we're up here on these tabs, you can also send welcome messages to a batch of users. When you use this feature, it will send welcome emails to anyone who hasn't yet logged into the system. This is most useful for when you're setting up and maybe you didn't have people log in initially to the system because you were still setting up, and now you're ready for them to get their login, and you can go ahead and send it in batch to anyone who hasn't yet logged in. Again, it'll automatically send it only to those who have not logged in yet. If you ever wanted to send it to anyone individually, you can just go over to the right of their name to the little settings icon and select reset password, and that will send them a fresh welcome message, including their login information. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to tell you about, then Carol's got one thing to share with you, is related to this user information. If you hop over to your reports, you can run a usage by agent report. So if I run this report, let's say for the last 90 days or so, download the spreadsheet. This is going to give me stats for each of my users. Right, so let's go ahead and save that. We'll open it up. And let's make this a little prettier here. Right, and so here you can see that I can see for each user how many docs they've uploaded during that period, transactions they've created, mail drop, how many times they sent a doc in via mail drop address, how many logins they've had, and whether they have logged in or not, right? If they've got their temporary password or have logged in and changed their password or not. Okay, so super useful when you need that information. That's under reports. All right, and so then Carol's going to share with you information about the commission split threshold and how you can manage that under manage users.
Hi everyone, thanks Monta. Okay, so the user setting that I'm going to share is related to the commission module. So it's a setting that you're not going to see unless you have the commission module in your account. When you go into a user profile, you're going to see the option to expand the commission % section. And under there, you can add commission information, but specifically I want to talk about this next commission split threshold. This allows you to track the amount of commission that is paid to the brokerage from the agent split of the commission. So if your office has tiered commission plans and your agent graduates to a higher commission plan once they've paid your brokerage a certain amount of commission, this is the amount, this is where you would put in that amount, and then the system would warn you when the user has reached or is about to reach that level. So I'm going to show you a transaction where I have that scenario. I have my agent on the transaction. I'm managing the commissions here. If I click calculate and continue, as soon as I click on my agent here, Erica, you can see this red warning that's popping up on the right side, and it tells me that this transaction's commission may push the agent over to their next commission split threshold. And so I can nicely see that so far the agent has paid $20,000 of commission to the brokerage, which happens to be her commission split threshold. And then in my notes, I see the agent's commission plan, which says that once my agent has paid $20,000 of commission to the brokerage, she moves up to a 100% commission split. So now I can nicely come here, adjust her commission because she's met that amount, switch her to a 100% commission for this transaction. I can even go directly into the agent's user profile at that time by clicking, in case I did that too quickly, right here where it says update commission split for Erica. If I click on that, that'll open up a new window where I can come in and adjust her commission percentage to be that 100%. Based on that new level, and I can remove that commission split threshold for her. So again, I'll nicely be able to update her profile directly from the manage commission page, and also be able to update her commission amount from the 80% to the 100% based on that warning. So nice little feature there that will help you be able to track the amount of commission that's being paid to the brokerage. And I love that that pop-up window also shows me other details about that agent, including how much commission or sales volume, how many transactions, et cetera. So nice little feature there. But yeah, that pretty much covers what you will see for that user, the ability to track that threshold, and also always recommend putting those commission notes in here. So again, when you need to, you can nicely reference those notes here on the right. Okay. So that pretty much covers that. Monta, did you have anything else?
Cool. No, that's perfect. Thanks.